Today, I'm reviewing Mystic Timbers, the Great Coasters International wooden coaster located at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. GCI has made several fantastic wooden coasters over the years, but I think Mystic Timbers is their finest creation in all of North America and Europe. Located in the Rivertown section of Kings Island, very little of Mystic Timbers is actually visible from the Midway. While the coaster isn't as isolated as the Beast, Mystic Timbers goes pretty far back into the woods. All guests can see is the lift hill, first drop, first turn, and shed, but more on that later. Arguably the best views of the coaster can be had from the queue line for Whitewater Canyon, the park's River Rapids ride. But you also get some nice views of Mystic Timbers on the train or atop the Eiffel Tower. But when you're actually riding Mystic Timbers, you feel completely isolated from the rest of the park. You whiz through the layout so fast that you can't process any of your surroundings. Cedar Fair's newer roller coasters like Orion, Copperhead Strike, and Steel Vengeance have all had stories to them, but Mystic Timbers is the coaster that kicked off this trend. These rides will never be confused for the highly themed experiences you'll find at a Walt Disney World, but they give the ride some character. The story behind Mystic Timbers is that the Miami River Lumber Company was shut down following a series of mysterious and unexplained events in the woods. The site remained abandoned until guests go on a joyride into the forest. The atmosphere is further heightened by the Imascore soundtrack playing throughout the queue line. And this is actually Imascore's first theme park project in the United States after doing some amazing work in Europe. The soundtrack perfectly captures the horror movie vibe, fitting in with the ride story of an abandoned lumber plant. When you reach the station, keep an eye out for some Easter eggs for past coasters in the Cedar Fair chain. But you won't have long since Kings Island runs 3 trains of Mystic Timbers and dispatches them pretty quickly. Like most GCIs, Mystic Timbers uses their proprietary and very comfortable Millennium Flyer trains. These trains are absolutely necessary in order to maneuver the agile layout that Mystic Timbers throws at you. Once dispatched, you roll out the station and climb up the 109-foot tall lift hill. And this lift hill is a bit weird. Unlike many lift hills that travel at a set speed, the lift hill in Mystic Timbers fluctuates in speed. You crawl up the first half of the lift, speed up the second half of the lift, slow to a crawl as you reach the apex, and then speed up as you crest the top. And I think the reason for this is so that guests can hear the narration during the lift. A security guard warns riders to quote-unquote go back home to their video games and whatever they do, don't go in the shed. This narration is still pretty tricky to hear even with the lift hill slowed down at these sections, but it definitely would have been impossible to hear if the lift was running at full speed, so I understand the park's decision to fluctuate the lift hill. As you crest the lift, an ominous screeching sound blares, and this screech can be heard all throughout the park. It's quite distinctive. You then plunge down the first drop, twisting to the left. If you're in the back, you get a tiny pop of airtime, but the drop really is more about the strong laterals you get on the descent and pullout. You then fly up the ride's second largest hill, giving front row riders a solid pop of airtime. You then bank to the left and drop down into the woods. If you're in the back, you get some nice sustained floater airtime in this drop. From this point on, Mystic Timbers absolutely hauls. None of the remaining hills in Mystic Timbers come close to matching the height of the second hill, which allows the coaster to maintain its sense of speed throughout the rest of the layout. This makes Mystic Timbers arguably GCI's best paced coaster. You do not have a moment to catch your breath. GCI is most well known for their fast-paced giant twisters like Thunderhead or Gold Striker, but Mystic Timbers is essentially an out-and-back coaster. However, GCI added their own flair to the out-and-back genre by adding subtle course corrections along the way. So while you get all the airtime hills you'd expect on an out-and-back coaster, several of the hills have the ascent and descent separated by a turn at the top. These turns occur in a seemingly random order, so it keeps riders on their toes. I've ridden Mystic Timbers over a dozen times, and I still can't remember the exact layout. In many ways, Mystic Timbers is a souped-up version of Prowler. Pretty much every single hill offers some sort of airtime. Really the only hill without airtime is the far turnaround, but instead that element offers some sustained laterals in the descent and subsequent turn that is relatively unbanked. In total, there are almost a dozen different airtime moments on this coaster. The larger bunny hills offer some nice sustained floater airtime, while the smaller hills offer quicker, more abrupt pops of airtime. Quite simply, Mystic Timbers feels out of control, and if you ride Mystic Timbers at night, it feels even wilder. I know the Beast is widely considered the king of night rides at Kings Island, but in all honesty, Mystic Timbers is a way better night ride. Mystic Timbers is just as dark as the Beast, but unlike the Beast, which is filled with trim brakes and straight track, Mystic Timbers is a frenetic blitz of airtime hills in complete darkness where you cannot catch your breath. In terms of smoothness, I've ridden Mystic Timbers the past 3 years, and it's about as smooth as a wooden coaster can be. This is something to monitor though, since GCIs can get rough over time without proper retracking. Just take a look at how rough Prowler has run in some recent years. And it wouldn't be a Mystic Timbers review without talking about the shed. If you don't want to know what happens in this part of the ride, skip ahead roughly a minute. When Kings Island announced Mystic Timbers, they hyped up the shed quite a bit. The entire marketing campaign was built around what's in the shed. Many hoped it would be an inversion or a drop track, but what was it? A brake run. However, it is the best themed and funnest brake run I have ever experienced. It's essentially a rave to 1980s music in a creepy looking shed. And your little dance party is interrupted by one of 3 cutscenes themed to either a vicious bat, a giant snake, or a mystical tree. The entire section is downright bizarre, and it feels like something you'd find on a European or Japanese dark ride. And for that reason, I sorta like it. Sure, I would have preferred a more thrilling coaster element like a drop track, but if the alternative here was a boring, unthemed brake run, give me the shed every day of the week. So in total, what would I rate Mystic Timbers? I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Mystic Timbers has a great setting and nearly perfect pacing, but I am deducting a point for the strength of the airtime. While Mystic Timbers delivers a large quantity of airtime, the quality of those individual airtime moments doesn't quite stack up with the other elite coasters out there. But the airtime is about on par for your typical GCI coaster. So what are your thoughts about Mystic Timbers or GCIs in general? Are you a fan of the shed? I'd love to hear what you think about this coaster down in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more roller coaster and amusement park reviews here at Canopy Coaster.